Hey guys, this is Illusion Podfics, and today we're going to be reading Birds of a Feather by House_Library. This is Chapter 8. Walking into the Batcave after being carried in and blindfolded was one thing, but Peter's mind was racing with all sorts of thoughts in that moment that he forgot exactly what was going on. Being put down brought him back to his senses as Nightwing removed the blindfold and his eyes adjusted to the light. This place is incredible. I know it's been a little over a week since I got here, but hearing rumors about where the bats were, well, I can't believe I'm actually here, Peter says while glancing around the Batcave, his voice shaking slightly. Someone clears their throat from behind Peter, and he looks quickly to find himself face to face with Batman. He can feel the eyes of his suit widen. Peter, we need to talk. Batman starts, holding his arm out to a door behind him, motioning for him and Dick to follow. It felt weird with people referring to him as Peter while he was wearing his suit, but he figures this was something he was going to have to get used to. I know that you've been through a lot, and there's a lot we need to understand about you. But first, let's start with what you know about the multiverse and how you ended up here. Sorry if it seems like this is sudden, but we need to address all of this as soon as possible, Batman says in his typical gruff voice. They had taken refuge in a secluded part of the Batcave. Peter guessed it might be a pseudo-office. He takes a deep breath. Alright. I get the sense that Karen filled you in on some of the things, but I'll do my best to fill in the gaps. Peter took a pause and reviewed all the information Karen had relayed to Batman on a mini-screen of one of his suit eyes. The whole Quentin Beck situation, bits and pieces about the snap, Aunt May, not much about how he got his powers, but a brief explanation. He takes a small pause as he collects himself. He had never been this open of a book to anyone back in his universe, and he never thought he would ever be as open of a book as he is now. Not that he had much of a choice in this case. He glances at Dick and receives a small thumbs up and a big smile. Okay, back in my universe, I'm called Spiderman. I fought villains, saved lives, the whole deal. The multiverse was a mess because of something I caused. Dr. Strange tried to fix things, but something went wrong and I ended up here, alone. You mentioned Dr. Strange. He's a powerful sorcerer in your world. What did he do exactly, and why? Batman responds while nodding in a serious expression. It was my fault. I messed up. I was too focused on myself and a dumb favor I had asked of him. After everything that happened with Mysterio, or Quentin, everyone knew who I was. My friends, my family, they were in danger, so I asked Strange to make everyone forget about me. But the spell, it went wrong. The multiverse started breaking apart and I was sent here, Peter says sadly. Peter looked up at Batman and it looked like he was in deep thought. I'm not exactly sure why I was sent here, but I can guess it's because I don't exist in this universe. There isn't a variant of me here for my presence to disrupt their timeline, and a too big of a way for it to make an impact that heavily on this universe. At least immediately, I think, Peter explains. Batman and Nightwing seemed confused at the word variant. He guessed they might have another term for them in this universe, like they do for mutants. Peter didn't know exactly how to work through the whole multiverse ordeal he had just gone through with Strange, and the other versions of himself. He tried his best to give a small overview of the situation, and how it led him to want Strange to cast a spell for everyone to forget him. So I'm alone now. I think my presence here might be what is keeping my universe together, Peter slowly whispers. He didn't want to cry anymore. He was tired of people seeing him as a victim, especially Dick. His comment about needing to be here for the salvation of his home had been plaguing him. It was a theory he had in his mind, and something that had honestly been making him feel his whole identity up to this point was just useless. Nightwing steps forward, placing a hand on Peter's shoulder. You're not alone anymore, Peter. We're going to help you figure this out. But first, we need to understand everything about your abilities and what you've been through, he says. I have these powers. I told Dick the whole situation with that. Super strength, agility, the ability to stick to walls, my spider sense. It warns me of danger, but more than that, I lost people because of it. Ben and May, his voice cracks as he turns to Dick. It was my fault they died. And now finding out you're my dad in this universe? Dick. I'm sort of starting to realize that it's a lot to process. Everyone who's connected to me at this point has been killed or in serious danger, and I don't want that, Peter says, his voice starting to shake. Peter, the weight you're carrying is immense. But you're here now, and we'll support you. You don't have to carry this burden alone, Batman says in a soft tone. I've been so scared. Scared of being alone, scared of not knowing what to do. In my universe, I had the Avengers. Here, I don't even know where to start, Peter says, looking directly at Batman. Peter had never been one to tell anyone his feelings. He never even wanted to. But he wasn't back in his universe. He didn't have to be that version of himself. He had this time to start over. And maybe he was talking about how he felt he could start to see if he can even get home, so it wouldn't affect him like it had been. We'll start by slowly integrating you into our team. We can be your Avengers, or whatever you want to call us. You'll have a place here, and we'll work together to find a way back to your world, or whether it's viable for you to return. But first, you need to understand that we are a family, and families support each other, no matter what. We will support you, Batman says kindly, looking at Peter with tired eyes. Nightwing gives Batman a sour expression that goes away very quickly. Peter swore it was a blink and you'd have missed it moment. You're not alone, Peter. We're here for you. You're part of this family now, and we face whatever comes together, Nightwing says as he hugs Peter. Peter still didn't know how to feel at first, but hope was blossoming in his chest. And he was starting to feel more comfortable here in this universe with the BatFamily support. We'll help you find your way, Peter, but you need to trust us. Trust that we have your back, just as you had others' backs in your world, Batman says firmly. Thank you. All of you, Peter responds quietly, referring to the rest of the bats out in the main part of the cave. Good. Now let's get to work. There's a lot we need to do, and it starts with you getting some rest. We'll figure out the rest together later, Batman nods as he stands. Peter, feel free to make your way into the main part of the cave for a bit and introduce yourself formally. Alfred will set you up with the room here, Batman says. Peter nods and makes his way out of the room. Peter stepped away from Batman and Nightwing into the main room. It looks as though everyone had vacated except for Barbara and Tim, fully suited up, who were off on opposite sides of the room. His heart began pounding, a mix of excitement and uncertainty. He felt like he was on top of the world now. He had made allies in this universe, heroes who understood him, who accepted him. Another version of his dad, Dick Grayson, who was not only alive, but also pretty awesome. And the BatFamily, who seemed willing to take him in, offering him a surrogate family he desperately needed. In his mind, Peter thought, this is incredible. I found people who actually get it, who understand what it means to have a responsibility due to capability and to fight for something bigger than yourself. And Dick, he's amazing. It's like I've been given a second chance, a chance to have a family again. Peter's steps faltered as a pang of anxiety shot through him. The excitement of the moment began to wane, replaced by the familiar weight of doubt and fear. A different thought popped into his head. I have a family. What about MJ and Ned? What about Pepper, Happy, and Morgan? What about New York? They're all back there, and I'm here. How can I just leave them behind? His chest tightened as images of his friends and loved ones flashed through his mind. MJ's smile, Ned's laughter, Pepper's comforting presence, and Morgan's innocence. The reality of his situation began to sink in, bringing with it a tidal wave of anxiety. Thinking, am I really doing this right now? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing right now? Or am I just running away from my problems? He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, but the questions kept coming, each one sharper than the last. More thoughts. Is the BatFamily helping me because they care? Or is it just out of obligation because I'm a stranger in their world? What if I'm just a burden to them? Doubt gnawed at him, eroding the sense of belonging he had felt just moments ago. He wondered if he was making the right choices, if he was truly wanted here, or if he was just a complication in their already complicated lives. Thoughts overflowing. What if I can't find a way back? What if I'm stuck here forever, away from everyone I love? And what if they forget about me? What if they've already moved on? His breathing became shallow, his vision narrowing as the weight of his thoughts pressed down on him. He felt a familiar sense of panic rising, the world around him starting to blur. I can't do this. I can't handle this. It's too much. I need to, Peter whispers. Peter felt his chest tighten. His breaths came in rapid, shallow gasps. The walls of the Batcave seemed to close in around him, the weight of the multiverse pressing down on his shoulders. He clutched at his chest, feeling as if he was drowning in his own thoughts. I can't breathe, Peter whispers to himself. Tim noticed Peter's distress from across the room. He had seen panic attacks before, and he knew the signs. Approaching slowly, he kept his voice calm and steady. Peter, hey, look at me. Focus on my voice, Tim said slowly. Peter's head snapped up, his eyes wide and filled with fear. There was a moment of hesitation, a flicker of distrust. He didn't know Tim, and Tim didn't know him. He had only spoken to him once, and it made him very uncomfortable to think about this happening to him in front of someone he doesn't know. But Tim's calm demeanor was enough to keep him from pulling away completely. Red, Tim, I can't. Peter's eyes were watery. Tim's small look of shock at Peter's recognition of his identity through his Red Robin suit left it as quick as it came. It's okay, Peter. You're safe here. Just try to breathe with me, okay? In through your nose, out through your mouth. Like this. Tim exaggerated his breaths, making them slow and deep. Peter tried to mimic him, but his breaths are still erratic, his body trembling. That's it. Just keep trying. You're doing great. I'm right here with you. Tim nods. Barbara seems to be getting some tissues and a wet towel. Peter's breathing gradually started to sync with Tim's, though his body was still racked with tremors. Tim took a seat next to him, close but not too close, giving Peter enough space to feel comfortable. I don't know if I can stay here. I'm a crack in this universe. What if I make things worse? You're not a crack, Peter. You're a person. You've been through a lot. And you have every right to be here, just like the rest of us, Tim responds firmly. But my family, my real family, they're gone. And now Dick? Is my dad here? What am I supposed to do with that? Peter says with eyes welling. It's confusing, I know. But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Dick can be someone you can lean on here without replacing the memory of your real dad. It's okay to have those feelings, Tim says, understanding written on his face. Peter looked down, his hands trembling. The fear and confusion in his eyes were heartbreaking, but Tim remained steady, an anchor for him. How do you do it? How do you handle just having to do? I can't do it, Peter says, trying to catch his breath. It's not easy, Barbara says suddenly. Tim looks at Barbara, a look of sadness crossing his face. I lost my parents recently, and I'm still figuring things out. But here, we have each other's backs. That's what families do, even the ones we choose. And you're part of this now, whether you feel ready for it or not. Tim chuckles softly as Barbara puts a hand on his arm, smiling at him. Peter's breath hitched, a new wave of tears threatening to spill over. He hated this. He felt weak and vulnerable. He felt anger bubbling inside of him. He was angry at himself for feeling this way in such an open manner. Tim reached out slowly, placing a comforting hand on Peter's shoulder. Peter flinched slightly at the contact, but didn't pull away. I don't know if I can do this, Tim. I've never been this scared before, Peter says, voice small while gritting his teeth. It's okay to be scared, but you don't have to face it alone. We'll figure it out together, one step at a time. And if you ever feel like it's too much, you can always talk to me. I'm here for you. Peter finally looked up, meeting Tim's eyes. There was a glimmer of hope amidst the fear. A small spark that maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have to carry this burden alone. Thanks, Tim. It's just, everything's so overwhelming. I was just in New York, losing my aunt, almost losing my girlfriend. And then, I'm here, in a completely different place. I didn't even know who I am anymore. I didn't even know if this version of me still exists, Peter says sporadically. Tim nods in disagreement as Barbara gives him a look of comfort. You're still Peter Parker. You're still Spiderman. Those things haven't changed. And you're also someone who's been through hell and back. But you're strong, Peter. Stronger than you know. And you've got us now, Barbara says, handing him a bottle of water. Peter pauses, taking a sip of the water she gave him with a smile of gratitude on his face. It's just hard to reconcile. I see Dick, and I want to trust him, but it feels like I'm betraying my real dad. And every time I think I'm starting to get a grip, I remember that Aunt May is gone, and it feels like I'm falling apart all over again, Peter says, taking a deep breath, his voice steadier. He was trauma dumping, and he hated how words just kept spilling out without giving Tim and Barbara context to who he was talking about. Tim nods at Peter's concern and pauses before he speaks again. I get it. Really, I do. It's okay to feel that way, but you're not betraying anyone by letting people in. Your dad, your Aunt May, they'd want you to be happy and safe, and they'd want you to find a way to keep going, even if it's hard, Tim says with assurance in his voice. Peter wiped his eyes, sniffling, the tightness in his chest beginning to ease, replaced by a tentative sense of calm. He quickly smacks his face with his palms 2 times, to the surprise of Barbara and Tim. Yes, of course they would. Why would I think they want any different from me? I am so stupid sometimes, Peter says while rubbing his face. Barbara quickly grabs Peter's wrists. Peter, look at me. You're not stupid. Sometimes it's just hard to remember that our loved ones would want us to be happy rather than getting caught up in their memory. Grief and mourning are just other ways of love that manifests itself. And sometimes, love is so strong it clouds our perception of their memory, what they would want for us, Barbara says. Peter nods. They would want him to be happy. They want me to be happy, Peter whispers. I know they do. And Dick, he's got a huge heart. He's not looking to replace your dad. He just wants to be there for you, however you need him to be, Tim tells Peter. I guess I can give it a try. It's going to take me a bit to sort of work that out in my head, Peter nods. He would never wish being this overwhelmed on anyone. His breath was finally getting back to him. And that's okay. Take all the time that you need, Barbara told him encouragingly. Peter took a deep breath, feeling a little lighter, a little more grounded. The path ahead of him was still uncertain, but with this new support system, he felt like he could take the first step. They're not going anywhere. Thanks. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it, really, Peter says quietly. Anytime, Peter, Tim responds. As they sat there in the Batcave, the weight of the multiverse still pressing down, but now shared, Peter realized that maybe, just maybe, he had found a new kind of family, one that would help him find his way, no matter how lost he felt. He just needed a little bit of time to get used to it. Watching Peter walk out of the office made Dick's heart ache. He felt a sudden obligation to comfort the teen in any way he could. He was suddenly drawn out of his stupor by Bruce speaking. Dick, we need to talk about Peter, Bruce said flatly. Dick rolls his eyes as his back is to Bruce. He felt this coming a mile away. Yeah, Bruce? What about him? Dick responded. On one hand, he was feeling hopeful about this conversation, hoping that Bruce had words of encouragement for him like he did for Peter. On the other hand, he knew Bruce intended to be something that would ground him back to earth. Bruce sighed, looking at Dick's expression. I can see how much you care about him, but we need to be realistic here. Peter's from another universe. He had a life back in his world. We don't know if he can or should stay permanently, Bruce said slowly, trying to bring sense to Dick. This was not the response that Dick was hoping for. A part of him understood what Bruce was trying to tell him, but the other part of him did not want to hear any part of Bruce's words. I know he's from another universe, Bruce, but he's here now. He needs us, and I need him too. I've never felt this way before. It's like having a piece of me that I didn't know was missing. Dick's voice was getting a bit colder at Bruce's bluntness. I understand that, Dick, and believe me, I'm happy for you. Seeing you with Peter, it's clear that you have a connection. But we have to consider the bigger picture. Peter is still grieving, still trying to find his place, and clocating him fully into this with us might not be the best thing for him right now, Bruce says, trying to reason with Dick. Dick could feel his skin start to prickle with each word that came out of his dad's mouth. He needed to calm down, take a breath, but it's getting pretty difficult to do just that. But he needs a family, Bruce. He needs stability, support. We can give him that. I can give him that. You said it yourself that we're willing to help him. What are you trying to say now? Dick started to raise his voice. Bruce had tired eyes. It looked like he hadn't slept in a few days. There was a pause as Dick raised his voice. And what if he finds his way back to his universe? What then? Are you prepared to let him go? To watch him leave and possibly never see him again? Bruce asked. Dick's eyes widened at the sudden comment. He didn't even want to think about this. He had thought about it briefly, but quickly threw it out of his head. I don't know, Bruce. I don't know if I want to talk about that. But I can't just push him away. He deserves to feel loved, to feel like he belongs somewhere, Dick said, lowering his voice to a whisper. Dick hadn't really recognized what his thought process was since he found out Peter was his son. He hadn't fathomed the technicalities behind even referring to Peter as his son. His mind felt empty and cold trying to process everything he had learned in the past 5 hours. He felt like he was on the verge of mental undoing. Bruce was not making him feel any better, and he should have expected this rather than Bruce comforting him like he comforted Peter just moments ago. It was cold in this room, cold as Bruce's eyes. Dick looked at the man he called his father and hoped for the best when it came to a response. Even if he was sick and tired of hoping for better and knowing he wasn't going to get it, Bruce took a deep breath. I know, Dick, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't care for him or be there for him, but we need to tread carefully. Peter is dealing with immense trauma. Pushing him too hard to fit into our world might do more harm than good. Did Bruce think that Dick didn't understand what Peter might be feeling? Because he felt like he knew more than anyone else what Peter could be feeling. Anger started bubbling up in his thoughts. He needed to breathe. He just needed to calm down. A reminder that Bruce was just looking out for him needed to fly in and slam into his head. So what do you suggest, Bruce? That I just keep my distance? Pretend like he's not my son, even if it's only in this universe? Dick said, trying to keep his cool. Bruce looks like he can read all of Dick's thoughts just by the way of concern crosses his eyes. Dick could see him processing Dick's emotion faster than Dick ever could. No, I'm saying be there for him, support him, but also give him space to figure things out for himself. Let him set up the pace. If he wants to be part of the BatFamily, he'll let us know, but we can't force it on him, Bruce says calmly. Bruce had put both of his hands on Dick's shoulders and just looked at him. Dick knew that Bruce had a really hard time expressing care towards any of the members of his family, especially recently with him and Damien, but this was one of the times where he succeeded. He could see that Bruce had been working through this entire conversation to come up with something partially parental and loving to say, and he had just done it. Dick's eyes softened, looking back at his dad. He nodded slowly, brushing a hand through his hair. I get what you're saying. I'm having a bit of a hard time processing all of it. Seeing him in pain, wanting to help him, to protect him? Dick choked out. Bruce motioned Dick's chin to move his eyes to look at him. I know. And it's a testament to the kind person you are, Dick. You have a big heart, and that's one of your greatest strengths. But remember, Peter is not your responsibility. He's a person with his own needs and desires. We have to respect that. I just want to do right by him, Dad. I know it is sudden and out of nowhere, but I want to be the father he needs, Dick says in a whisper. And you can be. Just take it one step at a time. Be there for him, but let him lead. He'll find his way, and so will you, Bruce said as Dick suddenly hugged him. He was hesitant, but slowly hugged him back. Bruce stood in the dim light of the Batcave, the weight of his conversation with Dick still settling over him. Dick had called him Dad, and for a brief moment, Bruce felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time, a flicker of hope and connection that had been missing for years. Bruce had dedicated his life to Gotham and its people, but his family was just as important. Rekindling his relationship with Dick had shown him that. He was Batman, the Dark Knight, but he was also Bruce Wayne, a father, a mentor, a protector of his family. Hearing Dick call him Dad was a reminder of that duality, a moment where the mask slipped and the man beneath was revealed. He thought about Peter, a boy from another universe carrying the weight of his world on his shoulders. Bruce admired his strength and resilience, but he also worried about the potential dangers his presence could bring. The multiverse was a delicate thing, and Peter's presence here could have unforeseen consequences. For all Bruce knew, Peter could literally be a ticking time bomb for this universe, or he could be the reason for unforeseen guests from another universe. Peter was strong, brave, and resourceful from what he had seen, but he was also vulnerable, lost in a world that wasn't his own. Bruce needed to protect him, guide him, but also be prepared for whatever complications might arise. He knew he had to check in with the Justice League. The multiverse was their domain, and any disturbance within it could spell disaster on a scale he couldn't even predict. He moved to the Batcomputer, his fingers flying over the keys as he initiated a secure communication line to the watchtower. The familiar faces of his allies began to appear on the screen. He debated for just a second, but continued. They needed to know about Peter and the potential risks. They had to be ready for anything. As the line connected, Bruce took a deep breath, ready to brief the League on the new and unexpected turn of events. His mind remained focused on the mission, but now, more than ever, he was very aware of the delicate balance between Batman and fulfilling a role with his children. Peter being here somehow raised the stakes of his position in the family, and he was becoming more conscious of it. He would protect Gotham, and he would protect his family, no matter the cost. For the first time in a long time, he felt a unique sense of power, a connection to his family that gave him strength. They would face this dilemma together. Bruce knew the days ahead would be challenging, but he was confident they would face whatever came next. His gut was alerting him that something was coming, whether it had to do with Peter or not. He could sense something was going to change. With that resolve, he began his debriefing, knowing that the journey ahead would require all of his skills, both as Batman and as Bruce Wayne. Alright guys, and that is the end of Chapter 8 of Birds of a Feather by House_Library. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you in the next chapter.